Hey guys, Sherlock here. So I just woke up to find season 3 has been announced with the rise of the Angry Earth. So we're going to do a quick reaction video to the Fortune Eternum that was released, our initial thoughts on it, some opinions, and then we will quickly flick through the patch notes and to see if we've missed anything and go from there. So I'm really excited about this. I think where New World at is now feels like the finished game. So it feels like we've been playing almost a beta for the last couple of years, really nutting out those little issues and frustrations that everyone has. And I really hope that this is going to feel like a finished product. The other thing I wanted to have a talk to you guys about is I'm working on a new website. So I'll just quickly show you guys that. So I'm really hoping to have this live for season 3. So I'm going to put a lot of time into this over the next coming weeks. So it's going to have all the information that you need, from armor weights to mutation gems. We're going to be talking about the mounts, the new heart runes, the artifacts. We're going to have skill trees. So in here, we're going to be adding all the skill trees for each weapon. And they're just going to link to a separate page that will have probably some safer trees, some harder trees, some stuff for tanking, and that'll keep everything in one nice tidy area there. And then we're going to do the same for dungeons. That has the links from here to specific dungeon guides that'll talk about pathing, the best team compositions, and stuff like that. So I'm really excited about this little project. That's what I'm going to be working on over the next couple of weeks. So come and join me. We're going to watch the Fortune Eternum video now and get some first thoughts on that.
Alrighty, here is our first thoughts. Let's push play. We'll probably pause it a few times, have a little chat about what they're talking about, and see how it will affect you.
I kind of have this anxiety about spending these emerald shards that take a lot of time and effort to earn, and we recognize that. So in order to smooth out that process, items are just going to drop at the higher item levels appropriate to the content that you're doing. You don't need to invest an extra resource into leveling them up or anything.
No more gear score grind. So that's what they meant when no more emerald shards by the looks of it, is basically you're not going to need to upgrade your gear. It's just going to drop at the gear level you need. So it'll be interesting to see where that gear drops. So maybe an M1 will drop the gear for gear M2. That could be interesting. But hey, no more emerald shard grind. Also means no more emerald shard sellers. So if those of you using that as your money making, rip.
Alright, welcome to Fortune Eternum, where we talk about all things New World. Today we have a very special episode of Balance of Power. We are going to be talking not about creating balance, but about breaking balance by introducing a bunch of new stuff in Season 3. So we're going to go a little bit away from the format and talk about upcoming changes to the gear. To help me go through this all, I'm joined by Patrick Smedley, our season's design lead, who's now also working and leading the progression team. And Drew Higby, a player with over 2,000 hours in New World. Also our product manager, but don't hold that against.
I like that they're using that as a flex. The 2,000 hours in New World is like, yeah, I got 2,000 hours. Mate, it's chump numbers.
That's done. Alright, so
Look
let's
how proud
get
he is of
into
his 2,000
all the big
hours.
changes
Yeah,
coming
good on you,
in
mate.
Season 3. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about some of the problems we've had and what the sort of goals to fix them are. Drew, you mind kicking us off here? Yeah, I think one of the big things that we had as we played through and we watched players play through the game is right when you hit level 60, there's this extra level, this extra barrier to getting good gear, which is the expertise system. And we decided that it's just not necessary anymore. We're just removing the expertise system. So if you really loved it, sorry, it's going away. But it's just entirely removed from the game now. You don't have to level up your gearing by picking up a few rings to be able to get level 600 rings or anything like that anymore. They just drop based on the type of content that you're clearing, and you'll get appropriate item level rewards for that content.
Is a huge change. So I've had a lot of lower people join our company and game lately, and the biggest question from them is, hey, I've hit level 60, what do I do now? And you'll be like, sorry, you need to run 3,000 Genesis runs so you can get gear score 600, so you can start your mutations. To then join your Umbral Shard. What if we can cut that out?
By picking up a few rings to be able to get level 600 rings or anything like that anymore. They just drop based on the type of content that you're clearing, and you'll get appropriate item level rewards for that content.
That is huge. So one of the biggest questions I get from company members
Awesome.
right, that is huge. So one of the biggest questions I get from new company members is, what do I do now? I hit level 60, what do I do? And you're going to say, sorry, it is time for you to run a whole heap of Genesis runs and chess runs, just so you can start getting 600 gear score gear. So that's going to take out a huge grind. Whether that then makes people feel like they don't have enough content, so is that balance between, is there enough content versus it's too much of a grind? We'll see for new players. But I do like it. It is a big, just monotonous task that is kind of unnecessary. So we'll see how that goes.
What about Umbral upgrading? Any changes there? Yeah, for sure. I think one of the other things is you would get a piece of gear and you would say, oh, do I want to invest my Umbral shards in this piece of gear? It's kind of an upgrade for me right now, but it's not the best piece of gear that I want long term. I kind of have this anxiety about spending these Umbral shards that take a lot of time and effort to earn, and we recognize that. So in order to smooth out that process, items are just going to drop at the higher item levels appropriate to the content that you're doing. You don't need to invest an extra resource into leveling them up or anything. Awesome. And Patrick, any concerns about the bloat maybe?
This will be really interesting. So one of my big worries about the new system was if we're going to need a item like Umbral shards to upgrade our gear, it's going to be that much harder to build up multiple sets, because yes, we're not going to have Ward and Bane, but we're still going to want multiple sets per dungeon. We're going to want to try and min-max them, and we're going to want to explore different roles. So not only you've got your tank, healer, DPS, everyone knows that I like mucking around with all sorts of different tank builds. So I was worried that this was going to push people into a niche. But to me, this actually sounds like it's going to open people up to play more roles easily. If that gear is just dropping at the appropriate gear score and you don't have to worry about upgrading it just to try another position. You know, a big issue with people, I want to try and heal, but they don't want to put those Umbral shards into sets they don't know if they'll enjoy. So I think it's quite good for the diversity of the roles.
The drops that we've had. Yeah, we drop a lot of items in our game. If you run an expedition, you're probably coming out of that with about 40 to 50 items. So as a player, you're then having to sift through your inventory, figure out what items you want to keep, what you want to sell, and what you're just going to salvage. It's not a super fun inventory management minigame, so we're not very happy with where that is right now. So with that in mind, we want to give you less loot, but we want that loot to matter more. So what that means is the loot that you do acquire should be higher quality, so it should be more useful for you. That'll come with a new system called loot biasing, which we'll talk about in a little bit. That's awesome.
It's huge. I'm sick of getting 40 purples in a dungeon. All I do is run dungeons, so I can run 25 to 40 dungeons a week and get nothing worth keeping. Some weeks I'll get absolutely nothing. Maybe a few pieces I can sell for 500 gold. So this will be really interesting. I'm excited to see how well it actually works.
What about chase items? Any issues there, Drew? Yeah, I think throughout the game there's a few different items that drop that have like the 3 perks that you really, really want. And so in a way, those are chase items. But the reality is they're not 3 perks that you couldn't get in any other combination or crafting or anything like that. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to add new chase items to the game that are really impactful and have unique perks. To that end, we're adding artifacts to the game, which we'll talk about a little bit more.
They're forcing me to PvE, guys. Anyone knows me, I just sit in town and do dungeons, and I don't farm items. But it sounds like they're going to be introducing items with maybe what we would call illegal perks, which could be quite fun actually, and give a reason to be farming these bosses rather than just trying to buy something off the market.
Awesome. Any problems or issues you've seen with crafting, Patrick? Yeah, if you're a crafter right now, a lot of your life involves around rolling these items and hoping you're going to roll the perfect item. It's a lot of RNG, and it's not super compelling because you don't have a lot of control over the item you're ultimately making. So
my other issue with crafting is how many components you need to craft one item. Scarab, food, armor, earring, trophies, timeless shard, scarab, attribute points, perk modifiers, Azoth, full materials. It's fucking ridiculous.
So for the expansion, we want to give players the opportunity to craft gear that means more to them so they can understand what they're crafting more cleanly. To that end, we're reducing the ranges that items can roll instead of replacing them with fixed gear scores, so you know exactly the power of the item you're creating. And we're also giving crafters a way to craft exactly the item they want down to every single perk, which we will talk about more when we talk crafting. Awesome. And last sort of issue, what about any issues with perks we've seen, Drew? Well, you know, you mentioned I'm a product manager. We do love data. One of the things we did is we looked at all the different perks across the game. We looked at their use rates. We looked at their effectiveness. We looked at why people were using them in certain circumstances. Because just because something wasn't being used a lot doesn't necessarily mean that it wasn't useful for players. And we did a pass, and we're removing some, we're changing some, and we're adding a few more perks. That's awesome. Well, some pretty big changes here coming. I think it's fair to call it sort of like an overhaul to the loot system in New World. Well, let's start. Are there any big progression pieces that we should be aware of, Drew? Yeah, so one of the exciting things is we're actually increasing the level cap to level 65. So there's a few more levels to play through.
Not saving arena orbs. I don't know if it'll work, but I would be crafting your Siren's orbs every day from now until the patch.
For that, you'll actually just hit level 65 very naturally just playing through the new content in the game. This isn't meant to be a long, arduous journey to 65.
Maybe not. If you don't hit 65 straight away, hit those arenas. But by sounds of it, I jumped the gun a little bit there.
This is, you're unlocking a bit more power as you play through the game, and people will be 65 pretty quickly. And do you get anything with those levels in terms of attributes, and how might that change the game? For sure, yeah, there are a few attribute points that you end up getting via just straight up leveling, a few via gear score. There's actually a few attribute threshold bonuses that you'll be getting that weren't there before. So there's a new one at 350, and there's a new one at 25. And what this means is there's actually a lot more combinations that you can do across your builds to get these attribute threshold bonuses that are going to change your playstyle and kind of create a more unique experience to your build, as well as optimize some unknown builds right now.
It's really exciting, the 25 breakpoint. I don't know if they're going to still do the attribute split on gear. I remember they talked about getting rid of that, but you know, sometimes you get absolute burst pace and we have, you know, 10 of some other attribute that you don't necessarily want. So depending on what those modifiers are, they could be really interesting to play around some different builds.
Yeah, I like the combination of having some early ones so you can like dabble to get a little bit of power and then some of the big ones. Any changes to weapon mastery to go along with the leveling, Patrick? Yeah, so we're introducing a new weapon, the flail. And if you're like me, you're going to equip that flail on day one. You're going to want to grind up to weapon mastery 20 so you can be very effective with it. If you're doing that in a live game right now, you're probably going to a POI in Great Cleave or Restless Shores to grind that out. And it takes a little bit of time. It's not as quick and snappy as we'd like. So to that end, we're decreasing the amount of experience you need to level a weapon from 1 to 20 by roughly 30%, with most of those cuts coming on the tail end. So levels 15, 16, 17, and beyond should be a little more smooth and quick, and you should feel that power progression more cleanly. Awesome. Well, talking about power progression, I think gear is also getting a big upgrade. Tell us about that. Yeah, so we're increasing the max gear score up to 700. So right now that max is 625, with most items capping out their drop at around gear score 600. Now you can acquire items anywhere from gear score 625 up to 700 in the expansion content. So they drop naturally all the way up to 700. They drop naturally all the way to 700. So there's no more upgrading an item to get to that maximum power. Now you get to go and grind go and acquire the exact item that you want at the exact gear score you want.
That's huge. So that's going to open up a lot more reason to actually play the game. If there's specific items, specific areas that you want to go grind out, have it drop, and then that is actually going to be useful in expeditions, that's going to be huge. It'll be interesting to see how that affects PvPers, because a lot of the only reason PvPers do the PvE content is for those Umbral shards that can upgrade their PvP gear. So if they don't have to do that, it's going to be interesting to see how that affects that kind of relation in Realm. Is it going to kind of divide PvP and PvE a little bit? Without that kind of mix between them. So we're just going to see how that works.
So different content will drop items at different gear score ranges. So really hard Mutation 3 content, for example, will drop 695 to 700, giving you the highest odds at that top end content. Other content will drop at different ranges depending on the difficulty of the content. Patrick, any changes with attributes coming with this higher gear score? Yeah, so higher gear score items, gear score 675 to 700 roll at legendary, and the top end of those items will give you more attribute bonus points than other items. So if you really want to optimize your build, you're going to be chasing those gear score 700 items to make yourself as powerful as you can be. Awesome. And combined with the level and the gear,
that possibly answers the last worry I had about the PvP and PvE. If the only way to get gear score 700 items is to do the M3s, then that's what will keep that kind of tied together. Depending if they're BOE, BOP, I'd like it if there's some BOE 700s that kind of opens up a market for expedition runners. A lot of the current M10 runners, the only way they make money is by selling their drops, and lately there's been kind of none of that. So if we can start getting some really good items to start selling back to the community from those high mutation levels, that'd be quite exciting actually.
Approximately how many more attribute points are people going to be getting? On average, you'll be seeing around 600 attribute points for most players, so about 100 more.
That's huge. The power creep's going to be interesting.
With the expansion, which should open up a lot of fun avenues for new builds. Awesome. Well, let's jump into the next topic.
It's going to be interesting to see how they balance that power creep wise. I guess because the M1 is basically 625 gear score, so I wonder if the M1 is basically going to be starting where M10s are at the moment difficulty wise, or if they're going to scale that back. Otherwise, basically, M1 will be starting at M10 difficulty and then going upwards from there. Be interesting to see how they balance that.
So you mentioned something about less loot.
And when it comes to PvP, I don't know a lot about PvP, but if your health and your resistance are the same, roughly the same, but you've got an extra 100 attribute points, that's going to increase your damage a lot, I would imagine. So I don't know how that's going to affect that side of it.
But loot that matters more. Tell me a little bit about that. Yeah, so the high-level goal is that one sentence. We want to give you less loot that drops, but we want that loot to matter more. How we're planning to accomplish a lot of that is a new system we're calling loot biasing. So me as a player, I tend to use light armor, a spear, and a bow. And right now when I play the game, I'm going to get items that drop that might be completely useless for me. I'll get a heavy gauntlet with focus on it. I'll get a life staff. These aren't items I ever plan to use. When I'm playing the expansion, though, I should be getting items that drop that are more meaningful to me as a player because of the attributes I have, the weapons I use, and the equip weight I'm set at. So I can expect to see more light gauntlets that have dexterity on them, more spears dropping, more bows. All things that I as a player might use more frequently.
I don't like this. As someone who plays every role, tank, healer, DPS, heavy and light tank, I play every role, every weapon, apart from musket. I don't like this.
Or if I'm not personally going to use it, I could probably sell it on the trading post. So it's a really exciting system for me. The natural question that arises from this is, well, I play multiple builds. How am I going to make sure that what I'm getting from this content is going to help me gear for those different builds?
I really, yeah. I should shut my mouth.
Builds. You can easily, as a player, swap your armor loadout to maybe my spear sword build, and then when I open my caches from Outpost Rush or War, now I'm going to have a chance of getting swords out of that.
I don't know if I like that either. I don't want heavy focus pieces. I don't want focus dex pieces. I'm happy to get rid of that. That's awesome. I don't like the idea of you basically getting dropped what you're wearing. What I was talking about earlier about how this could open up more diversity in builds themselves. This isn't going to allow people to move into other roles very easily. So if you're maining Spear Great Axe, it's going to take you a long time without buying gear to then start trying out healing. So you're not going to be able to get a few healer pieces to go and try out healing without going and spending money to buy it off the market or craft it. So I don't know if I like that system. I was excited before about the diversity it could open up, but now I actually feel like that's going to close it back up again.
So I can gear myself easily for multiple pieces of content depending on what I'm wearing at the moment I do that content. Awesome. Well, speaking of perks, Drew, tell us a little bit about all the big perk changes coming this season.
Yeah, as I mentioned, we kind of looked through a bunch of the different perks and really dove deep on all the different ones that were there, how they're being used, how maybe they weren't being used. To that end, some perks are being removed, such as the siphoning perks. They just didn't have a very high acquisition or use rate. Probably too high of an acquisition rate, definitely too little of a use rate. And so we're removing some perks like that from the game that just aren't seeing use and players don't feel like they're fun. The goal here is when you get an item, you shouldn't say, this item is just not useful because it doesn't have that one perk that makes it useful. To that end, we're removing wards and banes and resilient, and items that you're looking for should just be the perks that you're interested in, not feeling like there's a mandatory perk that you have to have for an item to even be useful.
This is still going to be a thing. You're still going to want Trenchant Strikes on a Greatsword. You're still going to want Enchanted on a Body Gauntlet. You're still going to want Blessed on a Lifestar. There there's still going to be perks that you need to have. You know, you're not going to be running a vicious greatsword. Yeah, you're still going to want your enfeeblings on your great axes and your spears. So I don't think that's completely true.
So yeah, we changed a few different perks, as I mentioned, things like some of the weapon mastery perks. So accelerating traps, for example, kind of plays into that fantasy of being like a hunter or trapper. So now the traps not only do they add a speed bonus, but they also add a bleed effect. So you're dealing a little bit of extra damage if something gets close to you, which would make sense because you're generally keeping things at a bit of a range of the musket. Now you get a little bit of a damage bonus up close via those bleed perks.
No one cares about musket.
Perks that are on there. And then we ended up adding a few more perks because who doesn't like some new perks? As long as they're good, which we really feel like these ones are very good. I'm very interested in decking out my entire fire staff set. All the armor will have plus fire damage on it now to give me a nice little bonus to my damage. So we're excited about that, kind of adding a little bit more dynamic perks to the armor sets that help you offensively, not just defensively, not just kind of like the weapon perks. So there's a little bit more of a combination, a little bit more of a range of things that may appeal to you as a player when you see items start dropping coming soon.
Awesome. And one of my favorite new perks coming, Magnify. Tell me a little bit about how this works.
Yeah, so one of the things is maybe you have a really good weapon that just has 30 con on it or something, and you want to use it in certain sets, but you can't because it ends up throwing off your attributes a little bit. Well, Magnify helps solve that problem. It just magnifies whatever your highest attribute is. So if your entire strength set is a strength set, now it's going to add 30 strength as opposed to adding 30 con previously. But if you swap over to a tanking set and you still want to use that item, now it gives you 30 con because that's what you're spec'd into the most. We feel like this will let you feel like the items that you worked really hard to get are even more valuable because you can use them across more builds. And
Now, I don't know if I understood that wrong or right. Is that a perk, Magnify, or is that for everything? If it's a perk, then it could be a little bit average, you know? It might be, oh, it's a nice third perk to have, fourth perk to have on it. Or if it applies to all gear. But then if it applies to all gear, then you'd end up bloody 500 strength hammer builds everywhere.
also allows you to kind of experiment with other builds a little bit easier, and hopefully that opens up a lot of new possibilities.
It looks like they're putting in a lot of work to open up that diversity for people to play other roles, but I think they're kind of undermining that a bit with their loot buyer system. So I don't quite understand that. It does open up the market a little bit more, because you're not going to be dropping such a wide range of items. So more niche roles like healers might actually be able to make a bit of money from their gear, because there's not going to be as much healer gear dropping because, you know, in an expedition, 5 people, only 20% of it is a healer. So it could open up options within the market with the loot buyer system. It's just not good if you want to try and use the items you drop to build different sets. So, interesting.
Awesome. Well, let's dive into probably one of my favorite features coming in the expansion. Tell me about artifacts, Patrick.
Yeah, artifacts are awesome. They are gear score 700 playstyle build-defining objects you can acquire in the world. So we have a whole set of artifacts coming with the expansion, and you can find these on named enemies in the open world, out of dungeons, the PvP reward track. All sorts of content will be vectors for these artifacts to drop. When you get an artifact, it's a unique one-off item, so it has a unique perk on it that will not exist on any other item in the game. So one example, my personal favorite, is called Scorpion Sting. It is a spear that has Javelin as a perk, but that Javelin doesn't push the enemy away. It pulls them to you. It's going to be super useful for me in Outpost Rush. When you get Scorpion Sting, you're going to go and you're going to see that it has a bunch of perks on it that are locked behind a quest. So when you equip the spear, you're going to see your HUD change to show the objectives that you need to complete to unlock those perks. As you complete those objectives, it might say go kill Thorpe in the depths, for example. You're going to kill Thorpe, and then immediately that perk is going to unlock. You're going to have that artifact be slightly more powerful. Eventually, you'll have unlocked every perk on the artifact, and it's going to be a really, really powerful item that you're going to want to make sure you have equipped.
As long as they actually think through the perks of this is a really cool idea. If it follows the suit of all the other named items currently that have random perks that make no sense, I imagine there will only be a couple of artifacts that people actually use. But if they get someone who plays the game, knows the meta, and knows what actually is useful, that could be really interesting and open up some really fun content.
So you can have 3 of them equipped at a time, 1 weapon, 1 armor piece, and 1 jewelry piece. And hopefully they should really change the way you're playing the game.
Awesome. What about you? You got any favorite artifacts?
There's a lot of really fun artifacts. Really excited to roll them out to everybody. One of the ones I think is very defining for tanks is there's one called the Wall that you're probably going to want to pick up. It's a tower shield. It dramatically increases your ability to block. It has like an enhanced sturdy blocking. It has 25% less
Who blocks? Come on. Tanks don't block.
damage from elemental attacks, obviously super huge. But all things that are good need a little bit of a trade-off. You're not going to be able to dodge with this thing. It's just too powerful to be able to move in.
This is going to be the ultimate pug shield. I'm trying not to swear right now. We've all had that pug where that tank just sits there right-clicking the whole time with no threat in the middle of the mob pack. That's the ultimate pug shield right there, guys.
And dodge at the same time. So it'll be something that it will change your playstyle as a player, but it should lean into kind of your class fantasy, your way you want to play the game in a lot of different ways.
It's awesome. My favorite probably is the Abyss. It's a great axe that actually scales off int rather than strength, so it allows you to try new builds, and all the damage is void damage. That's pretty cool.
It sounds horrific. You right, buddy? This is Gus, by the way, guys. He is half pug, half French bulldog, and he is a little menace. So I'm sorry that he's hanging out with us today. Full void damage and great axe. Great axe, great sword.
Favorite probably is the Abyss. It's a great axe that actually...
Full void damage, great axe with int. In the current style, I don't see how that works.
Scales off int rather than strength, so it allows you to try new builds, and all the damage is...
Unless the weapon itself... I think I understood that one. The weapon itself must scale off int. It's going to be big for rapiers. 300 int rapier with the great axe that does void damage. So So you'll get the extra damage from the elemental. That's where I see that being used. Or healer great axes. 300 int, 300 focus. Now 300 int, 265 focus, 50 con, life staff, great axe.
Which is void damage. That's pretty cool. All right, let's jump into crafting, Patrick. What are some of the changes coming with crafting?
Yeah, so as I mentioned a little bit earlier, crafters right now have this paradigm that we don't love where you're rolling on a pretty wide range of gear scores, so it makes getting the item you want to craft pretty hard to do. So the first big change you're making is gear score is now a fixed value when you craft. You know exactly the gear score you're going to output. So when you have all of your buffs equipped, all of your food taken, town buff is up, you know that you're going to craft an item at a specific gear score, and then you can still roll on those perks depending on the what attribute mod you throw in there, what perk mod.
I like that. That takes a lot of the RNG out of it. I don't mind there being a little bit of RNG when it comes to crafting. Can you see this guy? Sorry, this guy's just the cutest little dog. I don't mind if there's a bit of RNG when it comes to crafting, but when 1 in 10 items, let's say, are a legendary, and then 1 in 100 legendaries have the perks that you want, like, it's just unbelievable odds.
Body throw in there, etc. But we're also giving players a way to guarantee a gear score 700 with a new item called the Azoth Inductor. The Azoth Inductor will give you a bonus to gear score, guarantee you that top end gear score, and let you craft a very powerful item. But wait, there's more.
So we currently need 10 things to craft an item, but now we're going to need 12.
We're also adding an item called the Prismatic Scarab. This will let you on a set cadence craft an item that is exactly the item you want. So you can specify the attribute type, every single perk on the item, and output basically the item of your dreams. And it should allow players to create best-in-slot items a lot more cheaply than they can in the current game.
That has to be BOP. There's no way that that's BOE. If that's BOE, sorry, dog here all over my desk right now. If that's BOE, it kills the market for high-end play. Does it kill the market? It depends what it takes to acquire that scarab. Depending on what it takes to acquire that scarab, it could actually make the market quite interesting. If it's very hard to get, and the scarab's effectively worth 50k, then it could be interesting. It opens up farming opportunities for people, and for people who know what perks people want, they can make some good money. Interesting. It'll, depending on the rarity of that scarab, and if it's BOE or BOP, that's gonna affect. Yeah, that's gonna affect the usability of that, and whether they're gonna kill the market or not.
And another change is now you can use both at the same time, right, to guarantee the gear score.
Correct. You can couple that Prismatic Scarab with the Azoth Inductor to craft that perfect gear score 700 item.
It's awesome. Hey, well, thanks for joining me today to sort of give an overview of the big changes coming in the expansion. I hope you all enjoyed the segment. Please like and subscribe if you did. We have a community question. We'd love your feedback on the upcoming changes. What changes are you most excited about? And is there any change that you perhaps didn't hear us mention that you had wished?
What changes are you most excited about? I am excited about the chance for diversity within the game. As someone who's always played every role, I would love for more people to play more roles. It's going to make it easier to run expeditions if people can play more roles, rather than sitting there waiting for a healer for half an hour or a tank. But I am a bit worried about how that's going to work with the loot diversity system. So it'll be really interesting to see how that works. And what was the other question? What change do you wish was happening? What change do you wish was happening? Honestly, I'm really happy with what they're doing. Possibly, I would be excited if they up the mutation allowance from 25 to even 50. I did see somewhere in Discord that they've done that, so what we might do is have a quick look through the patch notes and check that out. It would basically mean that I don't need my ult anymore, which means I don't have to grind that out. If they up that mutation level, there's no need for me to have my ult, which means I can just really focus on gearing up my main account for our speedruns and going from there. So I'm going to pause this right now, I'm going to pull up the patch notes, and we'll just have a quick flick through that. We're not going to go too in-depth, it's a really long video, and just see if we've missed anything from this video.
It's recording this after I recorded the bulk of the last part of the video because I missed something. So I said in the video that I would love if there was higher mutation run limit, and there is. So I missed it here, but it says based on player feedback, mutations will have 3 difficulties and a weekly limit of 100 mutations. This added accessibility means less time waiting for groups and more opportunities for players to help less experienced adventurers. That is huge. I am very wary of running lower mutation dungeons because I quite often run out of dungeon runs. If you don't know me, I speedrun. That is basically all I like doing in this game. So I can easily go through 25 to 50 runs a week between the 2 accounts. This is huge. It'll mean I can focus on one account, and it means I can spend more time helping lower level players as well. Alrighty. So we'll just have a quick look through this. It's a long video. I'm not sure if anyone is still even sticking around. So let's have a quick flick through and just see if we've missed anything. The mounts. So the mounts are going to be really interesting, I think, with them opening up more farming opportunities in PvE. This could be really fun. At the moment, I don't really do any open world stuff. Depending on how it works, it could make Corruption Portal running a lot more fun. You can quickly get between the portals and carry on, depending on how it works with getting out of combat and getting back onto your mount. That could be really neat. This is a paid expansion. So if you already own the game, it looks like it's going to be $29.99. And if you don't already have the base game, The base game and the expansion is $69.99. I assume that's US. I'm happy with that. If this is actually the amount of content that they're talking about, that's fine. We've had almost 2 years of a game that we paid $40 for. So I'm okay with that. The trailer, have a look at that if you haven't already. It's quite visually appealing. Kind of does a little insight into new First Light, the Angry Earth, possibly the quest line, and a little bit of Mount teasing there. So there's a new story in First Light. Yep, so it's going to be a new story around the Angry Earth. Mounts, summon a mount for faster traversal across Eternum. Master horses, dire wolves, and lions, each with a unique look, customizable equipment, and a name you can set. Level up the new riding trade skill to earn upgrades like increased speeds, buffs at higher tier, consumable food for your new friend. I like that. I wonder if you're going to be able to use it in combat. Otherwise, why are you going to need consumable food for your mount? Unless it's for speed, bits and pieces like that. Increase your character's level to 65, gear score to 700. Depending on how much you want to rush there, I'll just save up some Sirens Orbs and then just get a group of 5 of you and just smash a whole heap of Sirens out. You guys get 65 in no time. Increase trade skills to 250. We've speculated about that for a little while. So if you haven't already, save up your armor scraps and your, is it the resins they're called from crafting? So you'll be able to quickly level up those trade skills. Complete a new faction quest, unlock a new faction tier loaded with desirable gear and items. It'll be interesting to see what's in that. Artifacts, we talked about that in the other video a little bit. Flail. The flail is a versatile one-handed weapon with the option for an offhand shield. That's really cool. I've always wondered why there's a lot of one-handed weapons that we can't use shields with. That could be really interesting. That could open up paladin tanking, maybe? Lifestyle flail with a shield. That could be fun. Through a combination of melee, arcane magic, and a strong defenses, the wielder can bolster their group's effectiveness without dropping the offensive. I really like that. It might offer some more protection options. So at the moment you got Lifestyle VG, the VG offers your rends, your empowers. This might offer some more protections along with. I wonder if it'll offer something along the old road of Fortify. So Fortify used to be a flat damage reduction. It'll be interesting if they have some abilities that can do that and do flat damage reduction rather than a Fortify percentage. A zone transformed. Elysian Wilds. Elysian is what it is. The southeastern tip of Eternum, formerly known as First Light, has been invaded by the powers of Artemis and the Angry Earth. Explore the raised structures of this magical new landscape and battle the ferocious beasts that have taken refuge in the Verdant. Oh, so basically we'll be exploring First Light again. I imagine it's going to be similar to when Brimstone came out. There'll be a quest line that'll take you around the area. I imagine there'll be a new expedition. Yep, here we are. Embark on a dangerous new level 62 expedition to track down the primordial beast lords before chaos emerges from the depths of Eternum. A new heart rune. Unleash your inner beast to deal unarmed light and heavy attacks on enemies. Season 3 content. There's nothing too crazy going on here. Pretty much the same as everything else we've got here dropped. There's a new expedition, new heart rune. There's finally mounts coming in. It'll be interesting to see how that affects PvE. No more umbral shards. Gear's just going to drop at the gear that we want, the gear level that we need. Level 65 max level 700 max gear score, which will be needed for M3s, which will be the new highest mutation level. And some powerful gear called artifacts that we'll need to do quests to unlock the perks. That seems to be the biggest changes. Seasonal events, we have Night Valhalla and Turkey Terror. So same as the last couple of years, I'm guessing there will be a world boss that you kill, get drops for patterns. All right, my fellow adventurers, that is my first thoughts on the Season 3 announcement. I think there's some really cool stuff in there. There's some stuff we obviously need some questions on. Once the PTR's out, we might be able to get a little bit more information on some of this stuff. I'll try and get everything up on the website as quickly as possible to help you guys out. If you guys want to help support us, come over and visit me on Twitch. We do all sorts there, mainly do speedrun content, a little bit of worm. We do a lot of theory crafting and just generally hang out and have a fun time. If you've liked this video and you're still here, thank you very much. Please drop us a like, subscribe, and maybe drop a comment of what your thoughts are on Season 3. I will see you guys next time.